Alright, time for another draft physics video presentation. Draft science here on YouTube. So, lots of stuff to get to. Unfortunately, we have to do some of this first. This Google is evil thing. A lot of this is pretty easy to understand. So once Google announced its catch, its financing catch of putting ads on all the websites on the internet, essentially, let's put the advertisements everywhere. So it went from no ads on Google to ads on every web page on the internet, and that was somehow a great exchange. So we went from search engines having some ads, posted that said ad right on them and all that kind of stuff, to ads all over the place and hidden and all kinds of things. So yes, really sucked. And everybody just said, okay, who cares? Because we don't have a choice now, because Google's the only one who still survived, because it's the one who lost money for 3 years, and all the other businesses went bankrupt because they couldn't compete with something that was free and didn't have any ads. So, anyway, and so you could do a parallel to, the internet is sort of like a library, right? It's the world's knowledge is in a library and a bunch of books. And you decide to have a librarian that can put cards in some of the books. And those cards mean that if the librarian can get you to take out that book, the librarian makes 50 cents. Now, we all know we wouldn't do this, right? So it would be retarded to think that it's a good idea for the librarian to have an incentive to put certain books, on the front shelf, right in the front of the library, and put other books way in the back because, I'm not getting any money for those. Obviously, these are just human things. People will be corrupted if you, seduce them with enough, ass and titties. They'll go for it, and so we're just all vulnerable to. And so we know that we don't create deliberately conflict of interest, so that we would never do that. So if we, the public, were ever going to decide to make a library, we wouldn't vote for the guy whose plan was, well, let's not pay the librarian, let's pay them to sell certain books, to get those books taken out. We'll give them a paycheck for that. So this is an obvious thing you wouldn't do to the poor internet, as a library of the world. This is not the great plan. Have an advertising company index, control the card catalog, control what books you can even know exist in the library. Let a company that has a whole bunch of financial incentives control the card catalog. Yeah, it's really, really stupid. The analogy fits perfectly. This is how bad our civilization is, that we can't even agree that this is a really bad plan. It's not good for the internet to have corporations have personal incentive in what web page they show you. Obviously, Google has a huge incentive to show you pages that have Google ads on them. Huge. And at YouTube, they have a huge incentive to have you watch videos that have ads in them. Huge incentive. Not a great idea. Google is evil, always has been evil. It started with an evil lie. There needs to be a non-commercial alternative to the existing search engine products. It's exactly what they said, implying that they are going to be that, when they knew they weren't. Evil, evil, evil. All right. Now, Baldy Catz. So, I don't know, maybe I'll go to the comments and get to Baldy Catz from there. I don't know if there's any much point. So, again, I played some of his video. All it is let's just mock lunatics, idiots, morons. Really, this whole flat earth thing, they're making the energy, right? The whole thing wouldn't mean anything if it wasn't for the credibility of the people who are arguing against the flat earthers, right? I mean, they're the one giving them power. And the flat earthers are just trolls in a sense. They're just trolling civilization, with their conspiracy theories. Not much better than, what was that guy, Alex Jones or whatever the hell his name is? Just make up preposterous stories about how they're coming for you with the government already has a coffin with your name on it. What a pile of shit. Just shit. And that's all the flat earthers are doing, and you're just feeding the trolls, frankly. So we'll get to, so again, Baldy Catz, you can be done with me. Just come on, just go find any two-slit video on the internet. Come on, just go ahead and just say, yeah, you're right, I can't find a good one, so I'll just give you another crappy one to make fun of. And I'll just demonstrate that I didn't have any better argument that they have. That you don't have an argument. You really don't have an explanation for why everybody fell for a two-slit wave theory that can't be made. You can't draw it. You can't do the math and the drawing at the same time and make the two add up, because they won't. They won't add up to the pattern. It's all just a big pile of hypey bullshit, and just admit it. Come on, be done with this. Get your name off the video. Okay, yeah, that's how you can do it. Just show me that you didn't have the argument. Anyway, and then also just saying, so I am offering $100. You don't have to be a PhD physicist, I guess, as long as you are in physics. There's some reason for me to believe you've done physics stuff, since you graduated. Like, you haven't just spent 20 years, working at the grocery store or something. So any physicist willing to defend the conventional standard model bullshit of relativity and quantum mechanics and blah blah blah, to be interrogated on the reasonableness of these silly stupid theories, and on how and on the history in terms of what the hell actually did happen that made this the winning theory, when I would argue the only thing that happened was hype. And that's it. There was no credible physics. There was just bizarre exaggerations that somehow the Stern-Gerlach experiment tells you what the magnetic moment of electrons is. I mean, the reasoning is stupid. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, we'll look at whole atoms and figure out what the electron is doing. Sure you will. Anyway. So anyway, $100, and I'm going to increase the amount. So first come, first served. So just letting you people know, you can hold out for more money, but sooner or later somebody's got to bite. Somebody's going to want that free money, right? It's supposed to be free anyway. Yeah, we're sort of demonstrating that it's not free, because you really will have your integrity on the line. You really will be exposed. And we could have another separate kind of side contest or bet. We could just agree on some judges, judges that I don't have to like particularly, who will just decide whether you got treated fairly in the conversation, because that comes up. I mean, D. Hilster is saying some shit that's just absolute shit. So all this hype that somehow I have rude conversations with people, which is just an outrageous lie. My interviews with people are not a problem at all. So this is just a lie. They can't find anything in those conversations where, it was just so outrageous. No, never happened. They just don't like the after conversations. That's the part they don't like, is where I do point out how they're full of shit. I don't see anything wrong with that if I can make the argument. And I certainly can make the argument that it's really stupid for D. Hilster to mix a lot of his flat earth theories, expanding earth, dopey, wacky, silly stuff. And he mixes it with the other stuff that might have some hope of being reasonable. And it's just really a bad plan. Throw your credibility right out the window and then try to talk like you have credibility. You shouldn't do that shit. Alright. So the comments were quite disappointing as usual, but that's the way it goes. I have to say some nice things about, some people do, are supportive, and I don't mean to diss you or any of that kind of crap. It's just that, yes, I have to be kind of careful when other people are saying what I'm saying or paraphrasing me, that it's kind of correct, because I don't like being misunderstood. So I am a little, punishing when it comes to somebody else saying or trying to paraphrase what I'm saying and it not being exactly what I would say. But I don't mean anything personal by it. So, like, Superior Mind has a way of speaking that's just completely different. We have sort of different personalities, and so he says things in ways that I wouldn't say them. But I appreciate the fact that he is attempting to explain to people something that's, a basic concept, and most of the time he does that effectively enough. So I don't mean to be, I don't wish to convey any displeasure with people in some big way. It's just a little way of, right now I hate that word and you used it, and that's irritating me. But that's the extent of it. So anyway, this guy says gravity wave detector should really be named LIGO. Yeah, well, that's a joke everybody's used, and so see, that's the kind of thing, like, okay, I don't really hate that as a concept, but it's like I've already seen this joke so many times that it's like, oh shit, you couldn't come up with something more original than that. I mean, whatever, Miles Mathis has used that. Lots of people have used LIGO. Okay. I mean, I think what needs to be understood is that it's insanely complex theoretical Go. Okay, and that it's not what they're claiming it to be, is this really proven theory. That they haven't tested this stupid machine to see if it can do anything at all. That's the funny part, is that they haven't done a gravity experiment with the machine to see what it can actually do. I mean, untested Go is what it is. Okay, unproven theory Go. And that just leads to, well, they can just sort of make it up, as they have so much data. They can find in the data anything they want. They can find a purple piece of chalk in the data. It's just true, because the data has everything in it. Every pattern imaginable is in there, and they can just call any one they want. But gravity wave. All right, I don't mean to hide you. No, I just want to free myself of the comment, because yes, I don't think it's not, doesn't get to the substance, and the substance is what needs to get to. You need to get to the fact that LIGO is unproven theory and unproven experiment. It's an experiment that they haven't proven the experiment can do what they're claiming it can do. There's nothing validating the instrument as actually working. Okay. Yeah, just click it. Okay. This is the 5th day in a row now I received a YouTube email for this video. Yeah, well, that's your choice to get email notices. I turn all that shit off because, no, thank you. I don't need all that spam. Excellent video, though. I thought you should know about this glitch, Gary. Yeah, well, obviously it's not a glitch. They're all titled the same. It was in the video. I'm titling them the same. That's the way it's going. Yeah, that's the way it's going to be. There's going to be a whole bunch of videos with the same title because I'm making a point. I'm being an irritant. I'm being troublesome because I've been troubled upon. Okay, and I don't have any. This isn't a fair fight. I'm the Indian with a stick, and they've got the repeating rifle, So, I mean, all I can do is whap the silly whitey, with the stick and just say, aren't you humiliated? I mean, really, your abuse of power, you're just tyrants, this is such bullshit. You have these policies you don't enforce. You sit there and take away all of the power of the user and give all the power to the abusers. And that's all the law's doing, is protecting the criminals here. So anyway, so they explained that it's a different video. So I suppose I could leave this. I mean, I'm sorry, but Zach, it does make you look a little stupid, but it's okay. I'll leave it up. It's your choice to remove it. You may remove it if you like, because maybe some other people are confused. I mean, I really don't think there's any reason for the confusion, but whatever. So this was from the EIE network. It started with this dude shit, which is just so, what? I'm sorry. Who can take somebody serious who does this shit, dude? it's a word for children. Okay, it's just anyway. Checked your channel with YouTube. I searched you to drop a message. There's no dropping messages in any kind of coherent way. I mean, I guess there is some channel page where you can leave messages, but whoever goes to those, I mean, I might get that message 6 months from now. Anyway, I found your channel and searched the list at the top, and well, anyway, my email address is in the description of every video, but whatever. It just says blank. So I clicked the video, and it opens. See, I don't care that YouTube's broken. I mean, you can tell me all that crap that my channel is broken on YouTube, and I just couldn't care less because, well, what the fuck can I do about it? Anyway, I stopped in to say we have that user from last night on watch list, so they wouldn't even block him. All right, so they can look at the chat and see he removed a whole bunch of comments. So this is supposed to be some sort of normal behavior. You see, you type something and then you leave it up for a few minutes and then you take it down. And that's somehow something normal people do. They make all kinds of mistakes in the chat, and so they have to keep taking their comments down. That's just something you think people should be doing in the first place. I mean, I would argue if they're making that many mistakes, you should just block them for that alone. But anyway, like there's some doubt of what happened. There's no doubt about what happened. This whole controversy was created by this individual, okay? So, understand you're being totally duped and manipulated by a troll, and yet you still can't concede the point. You're so far behind, you'll never catch up. This guy is going to be so far ahead of you people. If he ever gets mad at you about something, you are really in for a shit pain in the ass because you don't have any clue how this guy works. No clue at all what people are capable of doing in manipulating YouTube for nefarious purposes. Okay, the rule breakers have all the power. Anyway. Didn't find anything bad in our Discord. Okay, well, I care about your Discord. Yeah, like I can monitor that too. Yeah, why don't you just take my name and put it in as a blocked word? That would, and I'll give you the name of my family members and everybody else, and you could just make them blocked words, so nobody can type them, and my address and so forth. If we see that user even try, we will step in right away. I have no confidence that you'll do that. I mean, I had to say it twice in the chat, and then you gave me the great option of send me a screenshot at my non-existent email address. Thank you. That was really helpful. Anyway, we do not condone that shit. Yeah, well, the fact is you sort of do. Because probably most of your trolly listeners are exactly the kind of people who go out and harass people like that. I mean, it's sort of harassing is sort of your game, isn't it? I mean, you really don't care about having a civilization. Like I said, the one guy in the debate room has a channel that only has 2 videos on them, and they're about harassing Onision, who I think is a piece of shit, who I debated 10 years ago, who's a jerk. And yeah, he's very pretty though. But the whole idea of you want to publicly try him. You don't want the system and rules to be in effect. I mean, this whole idea is, let's go to his house and force him on the witness stand. I mean, you're breaking fundamental constitutional rights. He has a right not to testify against himself, shithead. You don't understand those little simple concepts that you just prove your case and you put him in jail if you have something to say. You don't sit there and do this fucking, let's hang outside his house with a bunch of cameras and, fuck the whole neighborhood and, make a big giant scene so we make sure he's guilty before we even tried him. Oh, fuck. Sorry, but this was the only way for me to reach you. It really wasn't, but whatever. Odd shit. Yeah, no, it's everyday shit for me. Okay, so welcome to my world. I hope he does find you all very interesting and engaging, so he can go waste his time over in your little cesspool for a while. All right. So anyway, Useless, but thank you. Whatever. Yes, I would appreciate it. I'd appreciate it that if other YouTubers who have channels that have been, real channels for years, they have over 1,000 videos on their channel, and you don't respect them when they say somebody just doxed me in your fucking chat, and you can't take it seriously. I mean, that's just sort of pitiful. And you still can't do it. I mean, you still are saying, well, I don't have any evidence that he did it because he deleted it all. So you don't believe me that he fucking typed in my name, the name of my father. He put all these people's names in your chat. And my full name, by the way, not just my first name. But anyway, I mean, fuck you then. I mean, you're all being very polite here, but you're basically saying we don't trust you. You're trying to hurt that poor troll. Fuck. Amazing. Horse shit. Alright. So I guess we'll do Deconstructing because he's, says something about me here. So I guess, Faith, who, whatever. One of my past fans. I'm sorry, but I mean, see, that's the whole thing. We function in the world so differently. I really can't be friends with people when I can't understand who the fuck they are and what the hell they're talking about. It just doesn't work very well. Anyway, so she says debate in Mendham, and we had a conversation, me and Deconstructing, and it went just fine. I did point out how I can't really do this whole there's no charge in the universe thing because it's silly. But like I said, the debate, there was absolutely no indication that we wouldn't even we would have further conversation. There was every indication that we would do this again and again and again. It went that well enough. So this is just such a poor rewriting of history he does here. And what really happened is that I went into their science room, their present your theory room, okay, and I got just trolled by the stupid cranky guy, so I fought back, and then the Bill guy, the guy with the freaking religion, solitons and all that kind of crap, Jesusitons, Christatons, nobody would say it, but it's like he was just making shit up, and it was like, what the fuck are you people doing? He just made up this preposterous story that all the secret golden books of true physics knowledge have been hidden in a safe at the library. You can't take the book out because it's in the do not read a safe. I mean, preposterous stories, just conspiracy nutty shit. And I said, that's fucking nutty shit. I mean, you gotta have some evidence for a claim like that. And that really pissed Dave off because Dave likes the creationists, apparently. Young Earth folks. But whatever. And then, so Dave insisted, he forced Franklin Hu to ban me from the room, So, that's the real history.
Alrighty, I'm going to answer some questions. Debate in Mendham. I have done that. It's sort of futile because it becomes a...
Clearly not spelled correctly, but I don't hate this, in Mendham. Yes, in Mendham. Yes, in Mendham. Okay, good enough.
Calling game. And I haven't...
It wasn't a name-calling game, but again, there's real disagreement. You're just pretending it all doesn't exist, and this is all some fairy process. Well, let's all just make up our own little stupid theory, and then we can make a big compromise out of all the theories and call it religion again. So let's just keep doing religion over and over again. Let's just rewrite, I mean, you got Catholic, and you got born again, and you got whatever, Protestant, and but let's all just become little versions of the same bullshit.
Can't remember his name, but he has another channel.
Draft Science.
But anyways, a couple years ago, I went on his channel and did...
No, it was exactly the opposite. I gave you the interview, right? So this is part of the whole joke. He went on my channel. No, I went on your channel, okay? I did you the favor. We posted it on your channel first. I was very polite in that sense.
talk with him, but even his own followers got so upset with him because I was being
What a pile of crap again. Just that's just absolute crap. He's talked about trolls. You have plenty of your own little trolls who hate you already, Dave. So, you know, he has to block somebody in this conversation. I mean, you know, so just horse shit.
very calm about it, and he could not understand.
Oh yeah, and so somehow there's this argument. I wasn't no, I was. There wasn't any indication I wasn't calm about it, other than the point was, well, how can you say there's no charge? I mean, it's so elemental to the function of the universe. Charge is huge. I mean, it's a hugely true phenomenon that electrons and protons behave differently in the same environment. I put the same environment in the universe, and I put an electron in, it does exactly the opposite of what the proton will do.
My point of view that the charge was not real in the universe, and he got more and more and more emotionally totally.
So this is a lie. You can show no clip of this, and this never happened again. He didn't get pissed off until I went into that little whatever it is room and defended my theory and attacked what I thought was just complete rubbish. You know, it's talking about how books are, you can't get them out of the library. I mean, conspiracy theory wacky crap. And I'm saying, why the fuck are you debating this in a physics room?
That all he could do was swear. There was no interest for me because it wasn't even a discussion like I.
So, more lies. I don't know if I swore in the entire video with the Hilster, so that's just a lie. He never complained, oh, you swore.
Just had with Rick and Shockwave, which was wonderful. You know, he talks about the electric universe and how really
yeah, a wonderful conversation about how fucking Venus is a fucking comet, right? Venus is as big as the Earth. Okay, really, it's as big as the Earth, and they say it's a comet. Fuck. I mean, fuck. I can't make my eyes go rolly, but you know what I mean. They're just rolling right now. Metaphorically, my eyes are just rolling.
Him, and I tell people, if it connects with you, great, do it, go all out at it. But I will not back down when a person uses words or things that I believe aren't going well. So that.
Yeah. So, but the whole point is Dave doesn't really want to defend his theory. That's the truth of it. Okay, he doesn't like having to do that. So he says things that are silly, and he doesn't really want to argue the fact that they're silly as a premise. So part of his theory is that there's some faster than light force that's out there, this G2 force that's bending the G1 force. And so now he doesn't need charge because he can bend the G1s all over the place or some kind of thing. And, you know, you can just point out, it's a non-starter, Dave. I mean, can't you figure out how it just can't possibly work? Because if I have a force that, let's say it can move faster than the speed of light, it means that things that are affected by the speed of light force, that the thing affected can send a force that affected the thing that sent the information before it sent the information. I mean, how can it go back and affect something before when it's an effect? How can the effect go before the cause? It can't possibly work because obviously it would ruin the cause. It would break the cause and cause the cause not to be a cause anymore. It just can't theoretically make any sense to create this extra fast thing out there, this magical faster than thing, because the whole cause and effect chain is completely dependent on the speed limit. But whatever. It really isn't a good place to, you know, it's this thing, it's the last place you want to go. Like, only in the most desperate circumstance do you try to force it to work by creating something moving faster than the speed of light. You really don't want to go there. Not only is there zero evidence of its existence, zero, but it does just create silly paradoxes that, why would I invite all of those paradoxes to have to explain away? It's just not a realistic place for your imagination to go. It's one of the places you just say, no, that you just don't go there until you spent another 1,000,000 years thinking about it, okay? Think about it for another 1,000,000 years before you're desperate enough to create some mechanism in the universe that's going faster than the speed of light. because it's just too paradoxical.
That was, something I tried. It's just not worth my time. I don't think it's even worth anybody's time. The guy's more made up. If he has his ideas, if you don't agree with him,
he's more made up. Like I said, you can't touch me. Okay, you can't touch the integrity, the solidness of my explanation versus yours. My explanations kick your explanation's ass. You don't even touch things like polarization of light. Most of the, again, in charge, how can you take charge out of the universe? It's just too frickin' stupid.
He doesn't have that ability to debate. That is, if he says something and I counteract with my explanation, he doesn't then come back and say, oh, okay, I can see what, maybe I'm wrong. That's not possible.
Why would I say that when you didn't make a counter argument that has anything to do with me being wrong? So again, I'll concede I'm wrong when you provide evidence of it, and you haven't done any of that. You haven't done any of this counter-arguing thing. See, we never got around to debating. We just talked about how bad the conventional theory is. So, yeah, most of our conversation was agreeable because we both agree the conventional model is nonsense. But that's where all of our agreement starts to fall apart, beyond the fact that, yes, the universe is physical. But he doesn't believe it's physical because, you know what? Those G2 particles, they're being manipulated by G3 particles. And then there's G4 particles. See, he does this infinity thing that's another pile of crap. The universe is one way, it just doesn't, it gets simpler. The checkerboard is the checkerboard. There's no checkerboard under the checkerboard.
With him, so I found it to be very unproductive and not really interesting in my time. I'd rather...
Okay, so you lied when you were doing the actual interview and we actually had the conversation. You just lied through the whole thing? Is that what you're saying? You just lied? You lied to the audience? You lied to me? Oh, okay.
Go with my daughter and do something with my 14-year-old daughter and have fun in life.
Okay, so that's a valid response to why I'm wrong and you're right or something. Hilarious. But whatever. You go do that. It's going to be, everything that happens to your daughter is going to be your fault, So, I mean, good luck with that. Good luck with that on your deathbed, imagining, I wonder how she's going to die. I wonder how horrible it's going to be. Gee, maybe that wasn't the greatest idea I had, inventing another person to be, murdered here on Earth.
Game with her, or talk about theater, or then...
Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yes, you're all so special, and it's all so special.
Waste my time with somebody who's truly not, who says they debate and talk and are open-minded, but I don't see evidence.
Frankly, yeah, I'm open-minded to rational theory. Yes, the theory that there's something moving faster than light, I think it can be pointed out to be too stupid. The theory that Venus is a fucking goddamn comet is too stupid. Just way too stupid.
So that with that guy. So I've really stayed away from him. So,
yeah, that's fine. But anyway, the whole point is you can make videos, you can make video responses, you don't have to interact directly, you could just keep it to the physics and not get personal. That would all be swell, but none of you people can do any of that. You're the people who get emotionally bent. You don't have to react emotionally.
Dave, glad to see Friday Night's Physics back on the tube. Yeah, that's cool, Duplicate. I do remember. Again, invite people to join in this.
Yeah, so whatever. I just don't think you're going to get much of an audience that's just going to be able to take the new effect. There, we've proven what attraction or repulsion is with something that takes 1,000,000 times more energy to produce the effect you're looking for. So for every inch you move something, you need 1,000,000 megatons of energy to do that 1 inch of movement. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a solution to the energy problem. No, not even close. But anyway, yeah, so you're not going to get away with this expanding Earth crap and these assertions that you've proven something, that some evidence indicates. You cite experiments that nobody even knows exist. He has some explanation where he's talking about somebody split light into 5 weak beams or something and then pointed them all in the same place and made a photon again or some kind of crap. I mean, I don't think they did that. But anyway. So enough of that. I think that's enough of that, right? I don't really. Yeah, once he stops talking about me, he's not very interesting. It's just the way it goes. So, I've already done, D. Hilster. Like I said, it's he calls it now. They use the concept of Lesage, and then he throws the words together like he says Lesage de new something theory, and it's like none of these things should be mixed. I mean, you never asked these people whether they wanted their theory smashed into some other person's crapola, so it's not very fair. What else is there to say? I just don't, the concept of just saying particle model is probably a good idea. And just leave it at that. I don't know if it's worth saying something like a Lesage style or something. Because, it just gets into the dangers of the limitations of that model. And the rules of that model, which were in an environment where electrons and protons didn't exist. Now, you're trying to make electrons and protons go away too, which is kind of bizarre. So, I don't know what to say to that either. It's just, I'm just saying it's wrong-headed in my opinion. You're not going to get to the right answer by pretending there's no electrons and protons and pretending charge isn't what really is running the universe. But anyway, do as you please. Alright, so I guess we could go back to this. I mean, I'd kind of want to do the Sabine Hassenfelder thing, but she's talking about Einstein again. The equivalency principle. So maybe we'll do that just for a change of pace, blah, blah, blah. Part of me wants to just talk about, physics, and so maybe I'll just do some of that for a second. This sort of goes to a lot of, D. Hilster always brings up Jeff Yee, who has a theory, speaks very kind, he's very polite and very soft-spoken, if you want to say that, blah, 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 but, his theory is jellyfish, okay? I mean, his theory is literally jellyfish all the way down, so the core of the energy in the universe isn't coming from the outside in, right? It's coming from the inside out, the energy. So it starts with the kernel being inside the matter, the waving jellyfish. Okay, and that energy is somehow perpetual and just keeps going out. Okay, to create the universe. And it's just, to me, this is one of those things where you just say, come on, that's got to be an illogical first step. The right answer is, there's just every single thing about the universe indicates that the right answer isn't going to be the energy comes from the inside, goes out, and somehow, comes back, to stay in the universe. I mean, you really don't want to have to do it that way, because it just doesn't, going out doesn't mean you're likely to hit something. It means you're unlikely to hit something, right? Because everything's sparse. So the idea is that everything's just being pushed together. The idea is why is the matter denser than the empty space? Why isn't the empty space just littered with a bunch of electrons and protons, at equidistance from each other? And it's because there is this external pressure that, comes from the outside. The universe is pushing everything together. It's not, nothing's getting pulled. I guess that was sort of the point too, is that you'd have to understand if it's jellyfish, then there has to be some way to pull the energy back, and you don't want to be doing that. And so the whole point is it's proximity. When you push stuff closer together, it means you create more interactions between force bits, and it's the ping pong paddle argument. You push the paddles closer together, you have more. The ball bounces much faster, many more times, and it's the same amount of energy with each hit, and so that's the storage of the pressure, is just to push the paddles in. You push the paddles in, you push the paddles in, and then the paddles bounce the balls a lot more times. So same amount of energy in there in terms of ping pong balls, but you've got them so bouncing so many times that they're obviously building up more energy, and that's the energy of the atom, is the pressure fighting back. The energy of the Earth right now, right? I mean, people can sort of figure out that if all of a sudden I killed gravity, I just made it go away, that not only would the whole universe, the whole solar system fly apart, but the Earth itself would fly apart. Because the Earth, the pieces of the Earth that are stuck to the Earth, the thing called Earth, is made of gravity. It's made of a bunch of little particles that are sitting here still being pushed by gravity. Even when we're on the Earth, we're still in the gravity. We're still being pushed in, pushed in, pushed in, pushed in. And that's the energy of matter. That's the E equals MC squared thing. It's really just saying proximity equals. Okay, it's the mass is essentially just saying density. What's your density? Is your mass, you have a bunch of particles in this arrangement, or do you have a bunch of particles in this arrangement? And this is more mass than this, right? Same number of little bits, but it's more mass because it's more condensed. It's per space occupied. It's got more stuff in it. The sun has atoms separated like this distance. The Earth has atoms like this, right? So the density of the Earth is much higher than the sun. That's why there's only 8 times. That's it, just 8 times the gravity on the surface of the sun that there is on the Earth, right? So the sun is 1,000,000 times bigger than the Earth, in size, but it's only got 8 times the gravity on its surface. Because this is what's happening in the sun. The paddles are still pretty far apart. Because it's a gas. It's just made out of hydrogen. So it's a very expansive atom, rather than an atom that's very compact. It has a lot of electrons and protons close together. So it's both about the size of the atoms, right? And obviously the size of the atoms and the proximity. That is how close the atoms can get to each other. So the closer they can get to each other, that is bond to each other. Like, the sun's a gas, so it's, the atoms are far apart. So the atoms are small and far apart, where in the Earth, they're big and stuck together. But this is where, you have to see that it's a push universe. Push, push, push. It's being pushed. Pushed is the fundamental mechanism, and there is no such rational thing as a pull. Pull doesn't make any sense. There's no way that the elemental checkers could pull. They have to move and hit. This checker has to go into this checker. And the idea is the ping pong balls is what they're actually going to bounce off of. Obviously, you get closer and closer, the balls bounce more and more times, more energy, more resistance to hitting each other, and that means the 2 checkers will have to move. That's the push. That's the elemental function. Now, it does get more complicated again when like I said, because protons have to react different to the checker. So when the checker comes at a proton, the proton goes this way or this way instead of going towards and away. And when the electron does the same thing, the electron goes the same way as the force. And that's the difference. So you have 2 interactions. You have turn right or left, and you have go the same way. And once you understand, that's all you need. All you need is this right turn to create perpetual traps. It's all you need. Yeah, so I just thought it was worth going over some of that simple stuff. It's got to start with those premises. So anyway, that's sort of just a statement I'm making about how this is all argued. Whether or not we get along and we like each other and all that kind of crap. The individual subjects have to be argued. What is magnetism? What is gravity? What is and what is a rational starting point? Because you can't. First off, you have to know that you got to unify these things. That all of it's got to be the same engine. There can't be, 400 different ways of doing this. Bent space mechanism, the bent space field, and then the quantum fields. It just doesn't make any sense. It's all got to be one thing. Okay, there's one checkerboard with one checkerboard set of rules, and you have to make those rules explain why there is magnetism, electricity, gravity, and the nuclear forces, which really are magnetism. the magnetic model of the atom. I guess I could have made that argument today, just how obvious. You could see how we have this choice. You can have this stupid gravity thing with the electron spinning around and around while it's spinning. While it's a little magnet spinning that does charge. It doesn't make any sense, right? I mean, magnetic moment for an electron. No, the magnetic moment is the orientation of the atom. When the atom's looking at you with its electron showing, it looks very different than when you look at it in between the two electrons. So when you look, it's not in the picture, but you should be able to get that. It's easy enough. I mean, all I do is make some kind of thing. I can just take this, and I cross these two things. I say that's an atom, right? So there's an electron here, an electron up here, an electron here, and an electron here. You can understand that, where the electrons are further from the proton, it's going to be different. So when I look at it this way, it's going to look different than when I look at it this way, because the electron will be closer to me and it'll block more of the proton. So that's easy to see. And it certainly will look different than when I'm looking this way, in between the electrons. The atom's going to look very different. That's the magnetic moment. You're just changing. As you turn the atom, the geometry automatically says the atom would be a different thing. And again, you can understand how magnets would create arrangements. Like I said, if I took two pieces of glass, you can understand this experiment. And so all the magnets are the same pole, right? And I arrange them. You can understand how, I can perfectly arrange them into an atom form, and it'll work. And I could even put the one in the middle, the opposite polarity. So I can have a south magnet in the middle, and if I'm very careful about how I arrange the other four magnets, I can have them equidistant from each other. And the fact is their pressure hating each other will prevent any one of them from going into the center. So they'll just sit there, stuck between the tension between the electrons hating each other and their attraction to the proton. And it'll work. The geometry will hold up. All right. Right now we'll do something else. I don't feel great today. It's funny how life works. The days I feel psychologically strong are the days I don't feel physically too great. And when I feel physically great, I'm very psychologically strong. Probably just seems that way, but it does seem like that's how it always. I never really have that day where I feel great mentally and then I feel great physically. Just seems like it never works out. It is disappointing. So of course there'll probably be an ad on here. We'll have to wait through. Oh,
Folks, no. I recently read
very loud.
The website of the Flat Earth Society.
So she's doing it too. So let's all just pay attention to an insane conspiracy theory, right? It's not even physics. It's founded on an insane conspiracy that all the evidence we have of the round Earth has been faked. I mean, it's too fucking stupid.
Serious. It's a most remarkable collection of nonsense. Maybe most remarkable is how it throws together physical facts that are correct, but then gets their consequences completely wrong. This is most evident when it comes to flat earthers' elaborations on Einstein's equivalence principle.
Well, so we have to do this from the flat earth perspective. We can't just do it from the idea that, okay, we're talking about two separate things, right? I mean, I did this already, but I'll do it again. Acceleration and velocity. And, I was thinking about this just because I was thinking, in school they should have just taught it the right way and just explained to you, okay, here you have a rocket ship, a shuttle, okay, and it's going to take off from the ground here. All this crap comes out of it, right? And it doesn't do anything. It just sits there. Well, what the hell's happening when that's happening? Well, the idea is that every single atom in this thing now these atoms are getting pushed here pretty aggressively, right? So that's why you have to make this thing out of titanium and blah, 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 blah. So it's got to take a lot of crap, all right? But they're all it's changing the atoms. So the atoms in the rocket are doing this. Some of them are going down, some of them are going up, right? And they're at equilibrium. Just as many electrons are going this way as going that way, and that's why the thing is sitting there. And the trick is this flame now has to change this ratio. Okay, it has to make more of them go this way and less go that way. So essentially, in all of these little atoms have to hit each other, push on each other's electrons, put paddles closer to together, make more pressure, and the pressure has to move through all of the atoms. And it takes time to move the electrons, right? They're doing what this rocket ship is doing. They're saying, I'm getting moved this way. To rechange my movement, you have to hit me more than once this way. It takes time to hit me more than once, right? So I'm going to use up a bunch of time, right? And we know that when we do this to something, if I push on something this way, I'll also might cause it to expand this way. So if the thing isn't really rigid, you know that, oh yeah, it's going to do that. Like a super ball hits a wall. A super ball doesn't hit the wall and stay round. No, it's changes its shape to something like that. Okay, and that's part of what makes it so elastic, is that it moves moves some of the energy this way, because but like a spring, that stretching means it'll always go back this way. So you've stored the energy in the misshapenness of it, and now you can get the energy to go this way. But that's what it's doing. It's accelerating. So it has to move all of this material. All the electrons and protons in here have to have their bias changed. And that takes time. And depending on what the thing is made out of will tell you how long it'll take. So if it's mushy, you won't get off the ground for quite a while, because you lose so much energy in all kinds of wrong directions. And the more rigid I can make it, the more solid I can make it, the faster the energy goes through it, just like sound going through metal. So just like sound, you could sort of understand, like a sound wave, it has to do the same thing. It has to move through the material and tell all of the electrons, we're going that way now. And so the whole equivalency principle is so flawed, because it's measuring two things that aren't the same circumstance. It's measuring two things happening that aren't the same thing, right? When you're standing on the earth, you're being affected by two forces, the force down and the force up. The only force you're feeling is this one. You never felt this one. The gravity thing, you never felt it, because it's moving each of your little bits, because it's a little tiny raindrop. This is big fat raindrops. This is atoms pushing on you. This force back up is big giant raindrops hitting you, atoms. This is a tiny, so tiny is this mist that this is a fog. Gravity's a fog pushing on you, and you never feel the fog because it pushes every little bit of you. So you don't feel it. This you feel, because it's big giant atoms, and they have to hit your feet first, and then go through your legs, and then go through your guts, and then go through your arms. And it has to go through everything. There's no equivalency between this and a spaceship. No equivalency. One is being affected by two forces. One is being affected by one force. One is being affected by a force that is entirely invisible and imperceptible, because it is so subtle in how it moves electrons. The other force is pushing atoms into atoms. Very different. The spaceship is pushing atoms into atoms. The pushback by the Earth is atoms into atoms. Those two are equivalent. Gravity is not equivalent.
The equivalence principle is experimentally extremely well confirmed, yes. But flat earthers misconstrue evidence for the equivalence principle as evidence for universal acceleration, or what they call the universal accelerator.
Well, the point is that there's a direction that every electron is actually moving, and it only moves in one direction at a time. And so that's sort of the elemental understanding here. So this stupid relativity shit is sort of trying to pretend that there is no, I could find no piece of matter in the universe and establish that it's going exactly 0 miles an hour. That the electrons are not actually moving in absolute space. There's no movement of the electrons and protons of this piece of chocolate, say, in absolute space. It's absolutely going 0. They don't think there's any such thing, and they don't think there's any such thing as this piece of matter is going the speed of light in one direction. Those two things are impossible in their silly world.
By this, they mean that the gravitational acceleration is the same everywhere on Earth. It is not. But you see, they believe that on their flat Earth there is no gravity. Instead, the flat Earth is accelerating upwards. So if you drop an apple, it's not that gravity is pulling it down, it's that the Earth comes up and hits the apple.
Well, I mean, obviously that would be really stupid because that couldn't do well, I mean, you would see the same effect in the sense that the heavy thing and the light thing would, because the Earth is doing the moving. But that's a bad way of thinking of the equivalency principle. So, yeah, okay. So, yeah, yes, that does work. Some sort of expanding Earth thing creating gravity. But isn't that what the Einstein theorists are now doing? They're essentially, there's like veritasium, like really real physicists are sitting there making silly arguments about how the Earth is moving towards, up. And that's really what gravity is.
The interesting thing is now that flat earthers claim Einstein said you cannot distinguish upward acceleration from downward gravity. That's the equivalence principle, supposedly. So you see, Einstein said it, and therefore the Earth is flat. You can read on their website. Why does the physics of gravity behave exactly as if the Earth were accelerating upwards? The universal accelerator answers this long-standing mystery which has baffled generations of scientists by positing that...
Okay, so again, it wasn't so baffling because now we're back to Lesage gravity, right? Because some sort of force that interacts with matter based on its mass, based on how many electrons and protons it has, would do exactly what gravity does, which is use only the amount of force, So depending on how opaque I am, a certain number of photons will hit me. Now, the less opaque I make myself more transparent, then more photons go through me and less interacted with me. Gravity works the same way as just saying, how transparent are you as a piece of matter? Are you transparent or are you opaque? If you're opaque, you're dense, you have a lot of matter that can absorb the little bits from the photon, then you'll be pushed more. So you'll use more force, proportional to how massive you are. And so everybody uses the proportionally same amount of force per unit of mass, because the electrons and protons are the opacancy. The more of them you have, the more in the same space, the more your photons you'll use.
The Earth is accelerating upwards. Ingenious! Why didn't Einstein think of this? Well, because it's wrong. And in this video, I will explain.
Well, and what did Einstein think of? He thought of a non-existent force, a non-mechanism, a non-real thing, just some magical notion that things attract each other. Because they do. Period. Nothing rational. No physical mechanism. Gravity explained by bent space. Well, bent space means you're using gravity to explain gravity, which makes no sense. You turn it into a three-dimensional model, and you have a vacuum cleaner. A vacuum cleaner created by what? What's running the vacuum cleaner? Where do you have it plugged in?
Why it's wrong. So what is the equivalence principle? The equivalence principle says that acceleration in a flat space-time is locally indistinguishable from gravity.
So obviously we can distinguish gravity pushing me down. Don't feel it. If I make the Earth go away, I won't feel gravity pushing me. I'll feel different, but I won't feel like I'm being pushed by something. And the Earth is definitely pushing. I mean, it's definitely hitting my ass. The chair is uncomfortable, frankly. Okay, yeah, I can feel it smushing the tissues of my body. Very different application of force. The one force, I don't know. Can't feel it. Can't feel it. Okay, the other force, yeah, I feel it.
Okay, that sounds somewhat technical. So let us go through this step by step. I assume you know what acceleration is, because otherwise you would not be watching a physics channel. Flat space
Okay,
time.
so this goes back again. This is a very subtle but really kind of important. I guess I should fix the camera, but it's too much trouble. So I'm actually in the picture, but that doesn't really matter. Yeah, so this goes back to the argument again I just made the other day with the car and the other thing. I mean, you have to look at every object and not see. If you want to do physics, let's just, I mean, this is an arrogant thing for me to say, but I'm just saying, this is physics. So what a physicist has to do is understand, okay, I have to see the checkers on the checkerboard. They're always going to draw the picture. So it's just going to be checkers in the positions, you know, and it's like say it's a smiley face and it's happy and whatever. There's an image and a pattern created. I know the pattern isn't the thing. The pattern had to be made out of the checkers. And the checkers had rules about where they were going to move and how they can move. And so that's the real story. So when I see a car moving, or I look at human beings standing on the earth, again, the thing you have to think of is, you can't think of it as this is an object, the human being. You have to understand, no, this is a bunch of squigglies, okay? This is a bunch of sponge cells, or this is a bunch of, you know, it's electrons and protons. You have to go deeper than the tissues, deeper than the bones, and go to the atoms, and then go to the electrons and the protons, and understand that this thing is electrons and protons. That's what it is. That's what's moving. So when we say it's not moving, it's just here on the surface of the earth and it's not moving, it's such a lie, because you know, yeah, we know, okay, it is moving. Obviously it has to be moving because I can feel it being moved back. I can feel the other movement. So I know that movement exists, and for that movement to exist, this movement must have existed. So the truth is this stuff is both moving this way. The electrons are moving down, some of them, and some of them are moving up, and some of them are doing this direction too, but we know that those two cancel out. So the one, you know, unless it's wind is blowing. So the one that's relevant is this one, and we know that this one is at equilibrium when I'm stuck on the earth. That is, there's just as much gravity pushing down on me as there is pressure from the earth pushing up on me, so I stay here. And that's where I'm stuck until I either change gravity or I change the pressure in the earth. So I can put a bomb in here and I can blow it up. Bomb, more pressure, I move this way. Well, I move that way because my electrons and protons move that way. And they move that way because you can either push the atoms and force the atoms to push into each other, or, and when that's happening, what's happening is that the electrons are really getting pushed into each other, and electrons resist by creating higher pressure, and that pressure pushes this and this push, and they just bangs into each other. But you have to, physics is this is the checkerboards. You can't see car and person. You can't say car is moving 100 miles an hour, because it's too insufficient an explanation. And no, it's not moving 100 miles an hour. It's on the surface of the earth spinning this way, and it's also going this way, and it's going that way, which means some elements inside of it are doing all of those things. Some piece of it's doing this, and some piece is doing that. Some piece is doing this. And the point is that when you add up all these movements, like the school of fish, okay, when you add up all the fish in the school doing all kinds of things, what does the net left over? If you have more fish going up than you have down, then part of your motion will be in this direction. You have more fish going left than right, then part of your motion will be in this direction, and your net motion will be this. And the electrons are running on the same principle, in the sense that they can only go one way at a time. They have to be, they can go this way, and then they can be hit by something and then go this way. Then they can be hit by something and then go this way. But it's all little lines. Everything is made of little lines, little vectors in a direction by electrons. Electrons never go this way. You know, they don't do that. They move in a straight line in a direction. All little straight lines. And any curved line you see is going to be made out of straight lines, where the vectors are just changing. The pressure is changing. It's just rational starting point, irrational starting point.
You are dealing with special relativity. So you have combined space and time, as Einstein told us to do, but they are not curved. They are flat, like a sheet of paper. Locally means in a small region. So the equivalence principle says, If you can only make measurements in a small region around you, then you cannot tell acceleration apart from gravity. You can only tell them apart if you can make measurements.
So I just assert again that of course you can, because acceleration pushing your feet is going to be fundamentally different than gravity pushing your electrons, all of them. You know, a substantial density of your matter. So there is no equivalence in how the acceleration is imposed, and I would argue clearly there's no direct correlation between how effective it is in you being pushed. If I try to move an elevator really fast, what happens to your body? It smushes, right? Is that going to happen if I increase the gravity? No. It really won't. I mean, I can get you going very fast from gravity and it won't smush you, okay? But if I make the rocket give you the same acceleration as that much gravity, it'll just crush you into little pieces. And so they're very different. One is pushing on atoms to create the acceleration. The atoms have to move through your body, very different, the pressure. And the other is affecting the electrons and protons much more directly, lots less error, a lot less motion sideways and in other directions, much more rigid. It's the difference between, you know, putting silly putty in the elevator and putting a steel rod in the elevator. There's no point in saying the acceleration on those two objects will be equivalent, because it won't. They won't gain speed at the same rate. They won't. They're obviously going to be misshapen, which means they can't possibly be equivalently accelerating because one just got a lot shorter than the other. I mean, you could prove it right with that alone, right? Just put a steel rod and a piece of silly putty in the same exact configuration and then accelerate them. And you automatically see that they can't possibly be equivalent because the mass isn't in the same location anymore. How could there be any equivalence? You didn't move the same number of atoms the same number of distance.
Over large enough distances. This is what Einstein's thought experiment with the elevator was all about. I talked about this in an earlier video. If you are in the elevator, you do not know whether the elevator is sitting on the surface of a planet and gravity is pulling down, or if the elevator is accelerating.
So again, gravity is pulling down into the floor. Okay, yeah. Pushing, you're getting pushed back up by the floor. If I let the elevator drop and not push you up, you won't even be connected to the elevator anymore. You won't care if the elevator goes faster or slower, because it can't go slower. If it goes much faster, it wouldn't matter. You can't feel the elevator anymore. The elevator's life and your life are now disconnected.
Upwards. The historical relevance of the equivalence principle is that it allowed Einstein to make the step from special relativity to general relativity.
No, now we're talking about, he made the stupid assumption by the stupid principle that now, because I've made these things equivalent, if I put a light clock in the spaceship, now I have to make the light in the spaceship do the same thing the light would do on the Earth, when they're the opposite force, right? The only two forces that are the same is the Earth pushing back and the rocket pushing the person's feet. Those two are the equivalent principles. So it's the force pushing up. So he should have light bending away. He should have light bent by going away from the Earth, not towards the Earth, if he was to take the two equivalent forces. So if you understood the two forces that are equivalent are the pushback on the Earth, the ground pushing me up, and the rocket ship pushing the person in space, those two are equivalent, then if you're going to draw the proper picture for light, it should be moving away, right? It's a pushing out force, not a pushing in force.
This worked because he already knew how to describe acceleration in flat space. You can do that with special relativity. In general relativity then, space-time is curved, but locally it is flat. So you can use
So just more bullshit, right? I mean, well, locally it's flat, it's curved outside the window. I mean, what? No. The universe doesn't work that way. The universe is the same crap everywhere. The same forces affecting electrons a gazillion miles from here. The same forces affecting electrons here. This is just light is light. All that, No. You don't get to make all these different universes by just pretending there's a local frame somewhere.
use special relativity locally and get general relativity. The equivalence principle connects both. That was Einstein's great insight. So
that's no real explanation. And again, the other point to be made is that this is how Einstein ended about doubling the amount of effect gravity has on photons. So unlike every other material object in the universe, photons are somehow magically, without any kind of rational explanation, twice as affected by gravity. When all the evidence, in my opinion, points to the fact that photons aren't affected at all by gravity.
Equivalence principle says that you cannot tell gravity from acceleration in a small region. That sounds indeed very much like what flat earthers say. But here's the important point. How large the region needs to be to tell apart gravity from acceleration depends on how precisely you can measure and how far you're willing to walk.
So again, this doesn't even make any sense. Like the frames would be in those kind of dimensions. No, the frames are the electrons and protons. How do you move an electron and proton? Well, if the electrons and protons are an atom, you push another atom into them, making the electrons closer to each other, which makes them fight back and push back. I mean, these are the ways you have to do it. Is you have to communicate force with force by moving something material. And to move something material means you're going to slow the force down. Material objects slow the force down.
If you cannot measure very precisely, you may have to climb on a mountaintop. You then find that the acceleration up there is smaller than at sea level. Why? Because the gravitational force decreases with the distance to the center.
Right, so that's one way to disprove this whole Earth moving up at the same rate thing right there. So yes, you've gotten rid of the silly theory, but you still haven't explained how the downward force is the same as the upward force from the Earth. We're at equilibrium. There's two forces affecting us. And I can tell the difference between them. You might not be able to, but I can.
Of the Earth. That's Newton's 1/r² force. Indeed, since the Earth...
So the r² thing is the same thing a light bulb is doing. It has to do with straight line vectors, something that's spewing something in a spherical, even manner. So anything that comes from a point source and spreads out to all three dimensions will create the inverse square law. Everything, anything. It's just an implication of creating divergence in two dimensions. When things diverge in both dimensions, that is, they're moving away from each other this way and they move away from each other this way, you have the inverse square law.
Is not exactly a sphere. The acceleration also differs somewhat between the equator and the poles. This can and has been measured to great precision. Yeah, we've known all this for some while.
Right. So you're just debunking flat Earth. That isn't interesting. That doesn't prove relativity. Get back to the light clock in the spaceship. That's the important one. Do the photons move down or does the spaceship move away? And the right answer is the spaceship moves away. The photons fly in a dead straight line. No reason to bend light.
If the acceleration we normally assign to gravity was the same everywhere on Earth, that would contradict a huge number of measurements. Evidence strongly speaks against it. If you can measure very precisely, you can even find evidence for the non-universality of the gravitational pull in the laboratory. Mountains themselves, for example, have a...
Yes, they're actually round objects, they have a different gravity at different locations, and depending on what the material in the mountain is, how dense the rocks are, okay, you will be affected differently. You will be gravitationally differently affected. You can stand on the mountain top, and if there's more iron on one side of the mountain and less iron on the other side of the mountain, you can tell the difference. It's a measurable difference.
Non-negligible gravitational pull. This can and has been measured already in the 18th century. The gravitational acceleration caused by the ground underneath your feet has also local variations at constant altitude, just because in some places the density of the ground is higher than in others.
Yeah. So, more reason to figure out that it's about hitting electrons and protons. More electrons and protons in a smaller area, more gravity used up.
So, explaining gravity as a universal acceleration is in conflict with a lot of evidence. But can you instead just give the flat Earth a gravitational pull? No, that does not fit with evidence either, because for a disk the gravitational acceleration does not drop with 1 over r squared. It falls most...
Alright, so she's debating again. Flat Earth nonsense. That's right. You have to have a sphere to do the inverse square law. So without it, you're not going to have the point source divergence.
Slowly with the distance from the disk. Exactly how depends on how far you are from the edge of the disk. In any case, it's clearly wrong. The equivalence principle is sometimes stated differently than I put it, namely as the equality of inertial and gravitational mass. Physicists do not particularly like this way of formulating the equivalence principle because it's not only mass that gravitates. All kinds of energy densities and momentum flow and pressure and so on also gravitate.
No, they don't. So that's the part that's silly. Forces aren't affected by forces. You can't move magnetism. You can't move electricity. You can't move any of these things with gravity because the fact is force can't act on force. It has to have a matter conduit. You have to move the matter to move the force. You have to change the position of an electron to create a photon. Just a fact.
So strictly speaking, it's not correct to merely say inertial mass equals gravitational mass. But in the special case, when you're looking at a slowly moving point particle with a mass that is very small compared to Earth, then the equality of inertial and gravitational mass is a good way to think about the equivalence principle. If you use the approximation of Newtonian gravity, then you would describe this by saying that F equals mi times a, with m.
So you really can understand, I think, that you can understand just what the efficiency argument would be, that the electrons in any object are already communicating with each other, so when anything pushes on one atom, it ends up using the force to push on all the other atoms. But the fact is that it won't be, the distribution of the force will have inefficiencies in it, and that you will deform the matter. It'll spend a lot of time pushing things in directions that won't be the direction you're trying to accelerate it in. So by pushing on atoms, you get inefficient acceleration. By pushing on electrons, you get efficient acceleration.
I, the inertial mass, and a, the acceleration, and that must be balanced with the gravitational force, that is mg, the gravitational mass of the particle, times the mass of Earth divided by r squared, where r is the distance from the center of Earth, which is, a sphere. So if the inertial mass is equal to the gravitational mass of the particle, then these masses cancel out. If you calculate the path on which the particle moves, it will therefore not depend on the mass. In general...
So it won't, like I said, if you cancel forces, you won't move, so that's just, horseshit.
General relativity, the equivalence of inertial and gravitational mass for a point particle has a very simple interpretation. Remember that, in general relativity, gravity is not a force. Gravity is really caused by the curvature of space-time.
So again, more nonsense. A curvature that just means things are sucked into. In 3 dimensions, it's just a big suck.
In this curved space-time, a point particle...
And if you just make it a push instead, okay, then it makes perfectly good sense. It's raining in the universe, and the rain is going to push you into things. The wind is blowing, always. And because it's blowing in every direction, you sitting in one location will always feel like it's always coming right towards me. You'll only feel the wind that blows in your direction. It's just a fact. You can have a bunch of winds blowing in all kinds of directions, but you're only going to feel the ones heading right for you.
particle just takes the path of the longest possible proper time between two places. This is an entirely geometrical requirement and does not depend on the mass of the particle. Let me add that physicists use a few subtle distinctions of equivalence principles, in particular for quantum objects. If you want to know the technical details, please check the information below the video for reference.
Yeah, whatever. Bullshit.
In summary, if you encounter a flat earther who wants to impress you with going on about the equivalence principle, all you need to know is that...
No, if you want to be finished with the whole flat earth moving in one way, then you just do the gravity argument about mountaintop versus the plains or something. So you just point out that the gravity isn't the same in those two locations, so we're done. Thank you very much, goodbye. But the fact is, we already landed on the moon, so this whole thing is really stupid. This whole conversation is fucking retarded. Why would I have a conversation with a compulsive liar, a flat earther? I mean, you're just lying. You're just fucking lying. And I don't know why the fuck you're doing it, but it's just too stupid to be anything but a fucking lie.
That the equivalence principle is not evidence for universal acceleration. This is most definitely not what Einstein said. If this video left you wishing you understood...
Oh, whatever. What Einstein said, again, is to me to just miss the obvious, okay? Which is gravity isn't the same kind of force as a mechanical object pushing you. Being hit with a hammer is not the same as being hit by the same mass in comfy pillows. How the force imposes itself on you is just as important as the force existing in the first place. Bullets, I can take the same amount of mass as a bullet, right? I could spread it, I can make a little tin film, and I can hit me with that at the same velocity, and it won't kill me. Because I'll spread the impact over a lot of surface area, and it won't do me any damage. But clearly, if I put it all in one little place, it'll just bore a hole right through me. There's just no way to say all acceleration is equivalent. It just isn't.
Understood Einstein's work better, I suggest you have a look at Brilliant.org, who have been sponsoring this video. Brilliant offers online courses.
So just more horse shit you have to put up with in this shyster net. Selling crap because they're paid me to say it. Yeah. Oh, I would have said it anyway, because I just think they're just so brilliant. They're just brilliant that they stole the name Brilliant, and it's just brilliant. Yeah, I would have said it anyway if they didn't pay me. Sure you would. Anyway, fucking internet. Hate it. Yeah, hate this shit. This overt. Why just beg for money? Why do it this way, right? Just say, look, give me money. I earned it. Give it to me, fuckers. Why do this? Why commercials? Just beg for the money. Donate button. It's not that hard. I did it. And don't mention it all the time. I don't say anything about donating. I mean, I appreciate it, but okay, so what? You don't want to. I don't want to impose. Okay, any suggestion. But the truth is, they could all do that. They could just say, look, I want money. Pay me now this way. Don't pay me in this fake way where everybody who ever uses this brilliant thing has to pay for her. They have to pay her. You're going to pay anyway. Okay, so do it now. Honorably. Don't do it dishonorably by paying for all these fucking ads. Because you're paying for it anyway. Well, and then they're just going to say, well, I'm paying for it anyway. Just because I donate the money doesn't mean I still don't pay for the commercials. And it's true. You pay twice then. The system sucks. Vote against it. Fuck. I hate this planet. Quite uncivilized to have to do this. For people to have to sell their souls this way. To sell their fucking integrity. They just sell it. Bribe me out of my integrity. Sad. Very sad. Okay. So that brings us back to Google is evil. Let's not forget. Evil. evil, 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 evil. But the irony is, right, when they do that brilliant paid me, Google doesn't get any of that money. So when she does the brilliant commercial, Google's fucked. Google gets fucked. So it is a little funny. Anyway, so till the next time, Google doesn't get its cut. But I'm sure Google's aware of that also, and probably is saying to these, let's demote that person a little bit because they're doing those in the video ads. They're cheating us out of our cut. Ugh, let's go get them. All right, anyway. Oh, it's just so bad. What am I doing this for? I don't need that. Ugh. Just go over here and hit this thing. Oh, okay. And then just say save recording. Okay, I got it. Thank you. Till the next time and such. Yeah, I'm not running on all cylinders, as they say. Leaking a little bit of oil. Blah, blah, blah.